Hi all, this is a lesson on the price ceilings portion of section 1.3, government intervention. Firstly, a definition. Remember, we need to know these for the exams. A price ceiling is a government imposed maximum price for which a good or service can be sold. Now, again, we're going to look at the diagram before we go into why government would want to do this. So, the diagram is relatively simple to draw. However, many still get it wrong. Start by drawing a regular demand-supply diagram, making sure that everything is labelled, including equilibrium price and quantity. So pause while you do this. Okay, here's what you've done. Should look something like that. To make sure that we draw the ceiling correctly, we just need to think, what impact would a maximum price above the equilibrium have? Let's see. Is anyone going to care about this? Well, no, because no one's going to be charging that price anyway. It's above the equilibrium. If they were charging above that price, the price makers would just bring them back down to the equilibrium price. So we can see that to be effective, the price floor must go below the equilibrium price. Here, we can see we have a shortage. Quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. As we know, this shortage would usually be solved via the price mechanism. Consumers would bid up the price until PE is again reached. With a price ceiling, however, the price tries to rise, but it just keeps butting its head on the price ceiling. It can't go any higher. So what does this mean for market outcomes? From a free market, we can see that the price is lower. What about quantity? We've got two levels, QS, QD. QS is the one that really matters here because it's how much of the product will actually get made. This is how much is actually available for consumers to purchase. QS is less than QE in a free market, so quantity available has decreased. Price goes down, quantity goes down. What consequences can we get from price ceilings? We'll examine the market for rented housing in New York, where they have put in a price ceiling. Maximum prices have been in place for some time. Why would this have been implemented? Well, they wanted low prices for the necessity of accommodation. They wanted people to be able to access affordable accommodation. I've used a picture from Friends here because rent controls were the only way that these two could have afforded such a huge apartment in New York City right next to Central Park. Now, we know that producers receive a price under the free market equilibrium. What can this lead to in terms of consequences from this policy? One is low quality, in this case, accommodation. This price control, this government control is skewing the market for rented housing. Think about incentives. Why would a landlord improve his apartments? If he can't make more money in rent, then why would he outlay the money? He wouldn't. He would make the repairs and improvements necessary by law or whatever's necessary to get a tenant, but the incentive to do more has been taken away. He knows that there will be a shortage, people will want it. He doesn't have to do any more. There are other incentives at work here as well. There is the shortage. Many consumers are willing to pay above the price ceiling, and landlords, of course, want to receive more than the price ceiling. This can lead to underground or parallel markets, markets that operate outside the law. How does this work? Landlords can break the law by asking tenants for more rent than is allowed, or they can invent charges such as a key fee, which is really just a fee for receiving the key. So not actually rent, but they charge thousands of dollars for it to make up for the rent that they're missing out on. But that's illegal. So it's an underground or parallel market. Also, in a free market, the market will clear at the equilibrium price. The price rises or falls to a level such that there is no shortage, no surplus. The price mechanism acts to ration the good or service. With a price ceiling, however, price isn't allowed to ration the good, rental housing. It has to be rationed another way. Non-price rationing often takes the form of long queues, or in this case perhaps waiting lists for accommodation. And neither of those are ideal, but there's a more insidious version of non-price rationing, which is favoritism. If everyone is only allowed to offer the same price for the apartment, it makes sense that these landlords would just give them to friends and family. However, it can lead to different forms of discrimination because the landlord has all the power here. They can discriminate perhaps based on race, gender, sexuality, children, and what it can lead to is the most vulnerable in society struggling to access the cheaper rent. So working at cross purposes with the original intent of the policy. Another example of price ceilings is in Venezuela, where ceilings have been put on bread and other necessities in order to ensure their affordability for consumers. Again, we see a shortage. Demand is greater than supply at the ceiling price. Many suppliers are therefore forced out of business as they can no longer make sufficient profits. The laws of supply and demand combine to make this shortage. So, as the price is lowered, fewer suppliers are willing to produce, but more consumers are willing to consume. Get the shortage. Now, given this skewed market, is the economy now allocating its resources efficiently? Before the price control, more resources would have been allocated to bread production, as the market sent a signal to producers to make it in the form, that signal being in the form of a price. Now, the price mechanism can't work, so we have an inefficient allocation of resources due to the price ceiling. And again, we will have low quality goods. Why make the bread better if you won't get paid for it? There's no incentive there. With such a shortage, if it's available, it will sell. Again, without the price mechanism, there has to be another way to ration the good. Here, there is a limit per customer and long lines to wait for bread. Here is a typical picture of a bread line in Venezuela right now. Now, let's look at the impacts of price ceiling on our key stakeholders. Okay, consumers. We'll see how some gain and some lose here. So, we know consumer surplus and free market looks like this. Now let's put in the price ceiling. Get rid of that, put in the price ceiling. We've got a lower quantity here. So we've got whatever consumers are willing to pay compared to what they have to pay. So we get this whole area now as consumer surplus. So they've lost this bit here, this end of the triangle, but then they've gained this bit here due to the lower price. So losing due to the greater lower quantity, winning due to the lower price. Now, producers, they lose a lot of welfare. They receive less money per good and they sell a lower quantity. So we go from the producer surplus in a free market to looking at what it is in this price ceiling market, and there we can see it's a lot smaller producer surplus. Now if we think about workers, all we need to look at when we evaluate the impact on workers is quantity. Lesser quantity, QE, now down to Q ceiling, means less production, which means fewer workers are needed, so people lose their jobs. Now the government, they're not directly affected in terms of expenditure or revenue like they were in taxes and subsidies. They may, however, face political backlash for the policy, although this example in Venezuela, probably not because their elections are rigged, but in more democratic societies, yes, they would face a big backlash. And in some extreme cases, they will actually be forced to spend on law enforcement when there are serious protests. Alright, that's all we need to know about price ceilings. Thank you.